So well done for doing your first prototype on the sample exercises. Let's walk through Instanap and see what you did compared to how I would approach it. So as a reminder, Instanap is about an energy drink that knocks you out for 4 hours and you wake up feeling refreshed. Based on the lean canvas, we can then derive the prototype. So what I've said here is the key market hypothesis is people who don't get enough sleep will use Instanap if they wake up refreshed with no side effects. So how did I get that? Well, pretty simple. I took the early adopters, which is the people, and I took the solution and the unique value proposition, and I combined those two, and that normally gives us the key market hypothesis. The XYZ hypothesis in this case, I've said 20% of students who don't get enough sleep will use Instanap if they wake up refreshed with no side effects. So what we've done there is said this with numbers. So why 20%? I made it up. But really where the 20% would come from is to get an understanding of how many students are there in that area or wherever the area is that you're targeting, how many students are there doing exams, how many students use some sort of aid to either keep them awake or go to sleep, how many pharmacies are there in the area, how many pharmacies are selling sleeping aids, what percentage of sleeping aids. You can do all this research and eventually you'll get to a number that makes sense. So we're looking for the number that's the low enough threshold to test the experiment, but not so high that we fail it unnecessarily. So that's why I went with this 20% that's made up here. Then we go off to the experiment. So the experiment, we capture that 20% as the go, no go. So this is our threshold of pass or fail. And then we drop into the hyperzoom. So the hyperzoom in this case is getting specific. So 20% of students living near our local university who don't get enough sleep will choose Instanap at their local pharmacy instead of sleeping tablets or uppers. So we've got a very specific use case. Can we test this? That's always the test. If we look back on this, yes, they are local, we know where to find them, we know what the value proposition, and we know how to test this. So how do we run this experiment? So the way we do this, in this case, we've chosen an infiltrator. And an infiltrator we've described as, we'll create a fake label for Instanap and place it on a pharmacy shelf, on a product, next to the sleeping tablets, because that's where people go. And we track the number of customers picking up the bottle of Instanap instead of the tablets. Now obviously we have to think about ethical concerns here, so we're not going to let them actually take it out the shop. We may be able to compensate them by giving them an alternative product or however we do that. But context really matters. So we had thought deeply, which is why we do the lean canvas around the channels. So we thought deeply about how do we actually find these customers? Where would they go in context? What you don't want to do here is run a Facebook ad for Instanap. Sure, you might get some hits, but it's completely out of context because people are in a social mindset. So go to where they are when they're doing the thing, where they're experiencing the pain, and where your solution can potentially help them out. So what we've also got here is the way we manage these experiments is we take it through these various phases. So this one, we've designed it now. This is at the design stage. Once we've actually gone out and bought the labels and set up the product, it's then ready. And then once we launch it, it's then live. So that would be the Instanap example. Have a look and think about what you did compared to this, and happy to take any questions. Well done for doing your first prototype on our sample exercise. I'm now going to take you through Visa for Dogs and how I would do this, and you can compare it to what you did. So the Visa for Dogs, as a reminder, is a visa for dogs that allows them to travel freely with their owners, of course. We've done the lean canvas, and then if we drop into the prototype, our key market hypothesis here is people will buy visas for their dogs if it's streamlined and more affordable process for dog owners to allow them to travel with them internationally. So it's quite specific about something we can validate or invalidate. Then the XYZ in this case, I went with 12% of dog owners who travel frequently for long durations will buy visas for their dogs if it's streamlined and more affordable process for dog owners to travel with them internationally. So the same as the key market hypothesis, except now we're saying it with numbers, with 12%. So how do I get to the 12%? Well, clearly I made it up here, but what I would normally do in the real world is go and do some research. So how many people travel internationally for extended periods of time? How many people travel with their partners? how many people own dogs, what percentage of people who own dogs would like to take their dogs with them. And there's a whole bunch of indicators you could look at, and this information is quite easy to get. So I'd look at all of those and then find a number that goes, what is the threshold, just sort of back of an envelope threshold, but what is the threshold by which this needs to pass for us to take this idea to the next level, to start investing in it and thinking about it. So you want a number that's low enough to pass, that's rational, but not too high that you fail the experiment unnecessarily. So that's how I got to this made up 12%. Then to run the actual experiment, here's the 12%, which is the go, no go, so that's the pass fail mark. In this case, we're going, 12% of dog owners who are leaving next week for long duration travel will complete a fake dog visa form in the local immigration office on a specific day. So remember, the test is always, can we test this like soon, like tomorrow or the next day or this week? And this is quite specific. When are they leaving? Next week. Where are they going to be? What are they doing? Which day is it? So we can go and construct an experiment. In this case, we've chosen the Infiltrator method out of all our Pretotype methods, because what we're going to do as a description is we're going to place these fake dog visa forms in an immigration office for a day and see how many people fill the forms in and brought them to the counter. We're also going to count the number of people going to the counter with the filled in forms, so we can get our initial level of interest. So how many people saw the offer, i.e. saw the form, and how many people took up the offer, in other words, submitted the form. Obviously, in the real world, we can go and intercept it and make sure that this happens properly, but that's how you would run an experiment to get data measuring behavior. Remember, it's a small sample set of around 100 people, and it's presented as if it's real, so that we can measure what they do. It's not presented as an experiment. So well done on doing your first Pretotype sample exercise. I'm now going to walk you through the self-driving school bus. And if you remember, the self-driving school bus is parents will transport their children to school and back using a self-driving school bus with no driver. So we've done the lean canvas, and now we drop into the Pretotype. So the Pretotype, the key market hypothesis is parents will use an automated, reliable and safe way to get their children to school and back if it's on time, every time. The way we get this is we typically combine the early adopters with a solution with unique value proposition, and that will guide you on how to formulate your key market hypothesis. And remember, you want a statement that you can prove or disprove. Then with the XYZ hypothesis, we said in this case, 5% of parents will use an automated, reliable and safe way to get their children to school and back if it's on time, every time. Why 5%? Well, what we're trying to do here is find a number that's a reasonable threshold that if we pass it, it makes sense to pursue this idea, but not so high that we fail unnecessarily. So in this case, we're saying, we just look at how many students are there, how many of them take public transport, what is the adoption rate of self-driving technology potentially in that area, how many people travel on buses at that particular school. So we have a look at all those metrics, which are quite easy to find, and then we figure out what our X% is. In terms of an experiment, in this case, we've said the 5% is over here, that's the go and no-go, and we want to hyperzoom that, meaning how do we make this testable tomorrow morning? And the way we do this is we go 5% of parents at our local school will use an automated, reliable and safe way to get their children to school and back if it's on time, every time. So we're quite specific about this is our local school. We could add in there on a specific day potentially or at a specific time to make this completely testable. In this case, we've chosen the fake door Pretotype method because it's going to be the easiest one to do in this case. So what does that look like? Well, over here at the description, we're saying we're targeting an email to 100 parents to sign up to the first self-driving school bus service at their local school. And we're measuring the parents that click the offer versus the parents that book their child onto the service next week. Now, really important, we're not counting how many people opened the email. It doesn't matter. Doesn't give us a good number. What we're counting is parents that took action. So we've got a small contained set of 100 again, and what we're doing is we're pretending that there's services available next week and they can actually book a time slot. So it's quite a specific action that they have to take to get that proper skin in the game. So if this experiment runs, in this case, we're going to spend $50, for example, for some marketing or to get it to the parents, and it succeeds, then what you can do is you can go to the second experiment and test actual skin in the game, which is, will parents put their child on the bus? Because remember, it's a self-driving bus, so it's quite a big leap of faith there. So what we do here is a mechanical Turk. Why? Because we'll use a human to simulate the technology. We're not going to build an actual self-driving bus and then test it. We're going to first test, does anybody care? Will they use it? So what we can do potentially is we can hide the driver from view and have him run the self-driving vehicle, and we can offer two buses potentially at the same time and measure which parents put their child on the normal bus versus which parents put their child on this supposed self-driving bus. So that's a really smart way to test this. So I'm sure you've come up with some great ideas. Have a look at your prototype and your HyperZoom and your XYZs, etc., and compare it to mine. And if you have any questions, reach out and ask me.